Hello and welcome back. We're doing the next section here. This video is about getting all the names to line up. If you look at some of the subsequent videos that come after this one, you may notice that there's a lot of name discrepancies between what's on the videos and what we've set up so far. And this is due to the fact that some of these videos were recorded at different times. And so what I'm trying to do here on this video is getting all the names to line up. And then adding just a little bit of new code to get us ready for the next big push on the Yahtzee game. What I'll do is I'm going to go through the code and update all the names so that they match those videos that come later. And that way that will reduce the amount of confusion that you might have when you see something named one thing in one video and in the earlier videos, and then see that it has a different name in a later video. So this is basically cleanup to get all the videos to line up. I wish I didn't have to make this video, but yeah, it's just getting too confusing with all the names. So I'm going to work through this process with you on getting these videos up and running. Let's start with the name of the project itself. Now in subsequent videos, the name of the project is called Yahtzee Prototype. So we're going to call it that. Just change the name here. I know we're a little bit past the prototyping stage, but I'm just trying to make it line up with the videos. So I changed the name, and it asked me a few things. Do I also want to change the name of the project? And I say for consistency's sake, we'll change that name. So we're renaming the project. Now we have the project renamed. We can take a look and see what that looks like. Another thing you'll notice in the video is the package name has changed to also Yahtzee Prototype. So we're going to change that name as well. And we'll call it all lowercase Yahtzee Prototype. And we'll change it everywhere. So we apply the rename even to the comments, and then we click on refactor, and it will go through all the source files and change the package name to Yahtzee Simulator as well. This makes it so much easier. And also make sure to spell it right. I misspelled it the first time I tried. So here's the correct name, Yahtzee Prototype. So I think we're set up to do the next step. Looking at our code here then, we're looking at the dice frame as our starting point. So let's look there. This is what our code looks like so far, at least in design mode. We're going to switch over to source view, and we're going to take a look at what we're going to have to change to get our code to match up with the videos that are coming up. We have to change the name of the dice frame to Yahtzee J-frame. Okay, here we have the dice frame. We're going to change the name of the dice frame to Yahtzee J-frame. Yahtzee J-frame. And I'll say, hey, do you want to refactor that name? We say yes, and it's going to go through and update all those names. So now we have our Yahtzee J-frame. And that will match the videos coming up. And then looking through our code, nothing really has changed here. All of these names, all of these constants have stayed the same. You can see that our constructor name has changed to match up with our class name change. I've added the roll number back in, even though we took it out earlier, but I just put a note there just to say we're going to remove this later. I was noticing that it was there in some of the videos, and so we're going to wait until it gets actually removed in one of the later videos. Another change too is, or it may not be a change, but just make sure that your hold button array, let's go down to the bottom. I guess that's the most important thing, is we'll go down to the bottom and take a look at these array names. We want to make sure these match up. So on the videos coming up, you might have it called hold buttons, perhaps not, but you just want to be consistent. So hold button array is going to be the J toggle buttons that are the hold buttons for the dice. We've got the upper score button array, which is an array of J toggle buttons. Lower score button array, the lower score text box array, and even though they're text fields, yeah, we're going to call them text boxes. It's typically the name for them. And then we're perhaps adding this one, upper score text box array. This will be all the text boxes next to the buttons. Then there's a Boolean array called the hold array. There's my dice. Here we have the roll number. And again, this is temporary. We're going to remove this later. We're adding a new variable called current UI state. I think this is new, so make sure to include that in your code. Make sure to spell it correctly. Notice UI is capitalized. And then finally, there's the game model that we may have mentioned, but if not, that's where it goes. You're going to need it, certainly in the next video. So that's down at the bottom, the private instance variable. So let's go back up to the top then, and we're going to work our way down here. All right, here's the constructor for the J-frame. Here's our J toggle buttons. We never did really change these names to something that's a little bit more descriptive. Let's rename these then to hold button 1 through hold button 5. It's better to do that in the UI. So we're going to switch over to the UI, and we're going to go through each one of these names. So I'm clicking over here on the first hold button and just changing the name here to hold button 1. And then making that same change. Just going to copy this name. And we'll call this one hold button 2. My hope is that it's also changing the code, but we'll see. We'll go back and check and make sure. Change that to 5. Looking back at our source, yeah, see how it already got changed for us. That's nice. So I'm going to take out this comment here that I put in just to remind myself. Alright, so that should match up with the videos coming up. Here, a little discrepancy of what we had in the game model. We called it the num upper scoring cats. In actuality, it's called, if we go over to the game model here, in the videos coming up, these are called score cats, not scoring cats. So, making that change. And that should, going back to our Yahtzee J-frame, you see that breaks it. So we'll change those names here. And here. So I fix that. And these are just little comments to myself to remind me to go in there and fix that. Next up, we need to go and change the name of these buttons. Now, in the original video, I'd said that the longer names I don't mind so much, but evidently when I wrote it, I didn't follow that same guideline. The names here are going to be changed to toggle, and then button is abbreviated aces. It's best to do this over in the UI, so we're going to do that here. What are we changing? We're getting rid of the J toggle. We're just going to say toggle, and then button is abbreviated aces. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing with all the other toggle buttons. What's nice about NetBeans is it manages all these name changes very well. And it goes through the code and changes not only the names of these controls, but also the code itself, so that the code matches up with what we're doing. Alright, now here on the 3 of a kind button, same idea. One discrepancy is that I didn't capitalize the letter O. So we're going to leave that lowercase. So be careful here. So toggle button 3 of a kind, where of is lowercase. And then we'll do something similar for the other ones too. Here's 4 of a kind. So lining that up. Again, the O is lowercase. Next, full house. So just changing names. Small straight. Wasn't very consistent here. Actually, small was spelled out, and then straight was abbreviated. For large straight, toggle button, and then we're actually spelling out the word large. Not going to make it all capitalized like it is on the button. We're just capitalize the first letter for Yahtzee. And then finally chance. All right, next up, we're making a modification here. I mentioned this earlier. There's a discussion about whether or not we really need this field at all. And I think in later videos we decide that that's not needed. And so we're going to take this out. So we're going to take out the label. And we're also going to take out this text field. And then we'll move these up to kind of match. Let's get the text to line up. There we go. And then that. Move that up to match. And then we'll also change these names. This one here is just called TXT bonus. This one is simply TXT upper score. TXT lower score. And then finally we'll call this one TXT grand total. And I think we have all the names right. Going back to our source, we probably broke a few things. Perhaps not. Here, again, make the one change where we call it score cats. That helps. The rest of this looks okay. We have our hold array. We have our game model that's been attached and created. And then we've added these two calls to manage UI state. Going down the code then, looking for any changes. In subsequent videos, the roll button is called just that. It's called the roll button, not JRoll button. So I'm going to change the name of the button. Again, that's best done in the UI, and then it will change it everywhere else. So right now it's called JButton roll, and we're just going to call it a roll button spelled out. So roll button. And we'll see what that does to our source. Yeah, see, you can tell that it was changed here. So that's been updated. So that's been fixed. Here's some new code. This used to be called enable hold buttons, but we found in subsequent videos that we need to both enable and disable the hold buttons. To do this, we've had to go down and actually change enable hold buttons. So it was right here, or it is right here in subsequent videos. So the orders may have changed a little bit for you. First we have clear and disable hold buttons, and then here's where enable hold buttons used to be, at least in the videos coming up. So we're changing the name to set hold buttons enabled state, and then we pass in whether we want it to be enabled or not. If we pass in true, then we want them to be enabled, and if we pass in false, we want all the hold buttons to be disabled. That way we can use it in two different places. The structure here is the same, I think, standard for loop. The difference here is instead of just hard coding this to true, we're using the parameter that was sent in to either enable or disable the hold button. Right, so now that we have this renamed and rebuilt, then back up here in the code where we need to call it, we need to change this then to set hold buttons enable state, set it to true. This is before the second roll. So you want to enable the hold buttons because they've rolled once. And manage UI state, after the third roll, we don't want them to be able to hold anymore. So what we've done is we've also called that same method, but this time we're sending in false. And so that's new code you'll need to add. Here we changed the name of the roll button, but that got already fixed, so I'll clear my little comment to myself. Everything looks good here in manage UI state. Now here's a variable you may not have included in your code, but it's important to have it there. It's called current UI state. And it takes the next state that was passed in. So make sure that's there. We've looked at this code already. I'm going to take out this comment to myself. I'm just moving down the list. Here's the names of everything. We actually don't want to see all this code, so I'm going to close it down. And here's our roll button. Now, looking at the videos coming up, the way things were rolled were a little bit different. And so if you really want to match the videos coming up, you'll need to make these changes. Basically minor changes. Here, instead of giving a type to I inside the for loop, I did it outside, and then I created this new variable called roll value. And then this pretty much remained the same, but right here I made a code change, and I took what was coming back from roll die and stored that into that new variable called roll value. So you can make that change. And then I use roll value here to actually set the text on the button. So that was another code change. And so I'm just getting rid of these notes to myself. put the roll number back in. We're going to remove this later in a subsequent video, but if you want the video, or if you want this to match the videos coming up, then yeah, leave it in there for now. And then this was kind of a big change here. Instead of using a chain of else ifs, I misspelled it here in the comment. The suggestion was made that change it into a switch statement, which I agree with. And then to match the videos, the later videos, a switch statement was used. So basically take all that code that was in that else if and switch it or change it to this switch statement. We say switch current UI state, and then in the case if it's before the first roll, then you advance it to before the second roll. If you were on before second roll, then you go to before third roll, and then if you're before third roll, you go to after third roll. So it's equivalent code, it's just stated differently. So if you really want to match up with the code in the videos coming up, you'll need to make that change. And then this code I put back in just for now, just so it matches the video, but we're going to take care of this later once we're ready. And so that's what currently the roll button looks like at this point in the project. Now, we put a score button on there because we didn't really have a way to score or to re-enable the roll button, and in subsequent videos there is no score button, so it's going to be really confusing to see the score button magically appear or disappear on the videos coming up. So we're going to go into the design window and actually get rid of the score button. Now this is going to mess some things up. First of all, we're not going to be able to continue to roll for a while here. We're just going to be able to do one turn as we exercise the UI without having the score button. But as we hitch up these score buttons and get the UI state machine working correctly, eventually we'll be able to do more than one turn. So right now I'm going to actually delete the score button. So you select the score button, you delete it, and we'll see what that does to the source. Notice how the score button disappeared. There was code there that did some stuff, and now it's gone. Because by deleting the score button, we also deleted the event handler that handled that score button. So now we're going to have to do those things the score button did, but we'll have to do that in each of the different scoring buttons lower on in the form. None of this code changes. That's all the same. Here's the names for things. So you can see the names that we changed made it into also this code as well. And then finally, what we saw at the beginning, the instance variables, those have all changed. I'm looking on my list here, see if there's anything else that we need to do to get this to line up. Looks like we've hit everything. So I apologize for not keeping all these names consistent, but if you do it this way, then you'll find that videos coming up will match exactly with this code, hopefully. That's my hope anyway. And the names will be the same, and so that will cut down a lot on the confusion when trying to understand later videos. So thanks for your patience, and now I think the rest of the videos should kind of roll out smoothly for you, and you should be able to get Yahtzee to code complete by the end of this entire video series. Thank you for listening.